Yeah,
Welcome.
introduce me as el hijo pródigo de Big Soccer Titlan, please.
All right, welcome everybody. We're starting
Yeah,
episode
yeah,
2 of Los
build
Cachirules.
me up, build me up.
Let's build up the hijo pródigo. We got Ronnie here. He's banned for life. Yellow carded, red carded, green carded even. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm Albert. We got Christian here. We got Joel on mute. He's at work. So three of us, 3.5 with Joel. Episode 2, Los Cachirules, 2-0 podcast. 2-0 podcast, sorry. Talking a little bit before starting the broadcast about the new coach, but let's talk first, I guess, on the game from Saturday. I was able to go there, and I just want to quickly state this one little point. I initially went into that game thinking it would be like a 4-2, 4-1 like blowout by Mexico, and watching the game, I saw a lot of possession, just like the olden days. Recently, U.S. Sort of stopped a little bit of that possession, but it was like 80% possession. It was a large possession for Mexico. A lot of attacks, but they actually got in the middle a little bit more than they previously had. But U.S. was still in there, so that was sort of surprising. But awesome win, awesome shot by Paul Aguilar. What do you guys think of that of the game?
I was surprised. I really was. I like the fact that aside from the possession, I like the fact that they kept winning the balls, all the loose balls.
Yeah.
And that to me was key, because I mean, honestly, sometimes when Mexico would play against the U.S., we would always, the U.S. would score on a fluke, and it's because sometimes we weren't able to maintain possession when we were supposed to. And I was actually, like I said, I was very, very surprised. Mexico was very organized. Last week I was talking about, Mexico maybe playing the cat and mouse game. Nah, they took it to the U.S. and they took it, they did very well. I was actually very surprised. What about you? Who's there?
So one of the things that you guys talked about last week, like you just said, was what can we expect from Mexico going into this game? I mean, I think we all have an idea. I think we all thought that despite the poor press the team got during the Gold Cup, people kept talking about how the team didn't play all that well and this and that. I don't know if I necessarily agreed with that. I thought that there were overall more positives than negatives. But one of the things that I mentioned last week, and I think John also talked about it a little bit, was I expected a very, very high level of intensity, and the only way that we were going to stamp our authority in the game was by winning those secondary balls. Those secondary balls that we won literally the entire game is what made the difference. Now, the reason we won those secondary balls was because of Jimenez and Chicharito and Oribe dropping back and pressuring, and also because Guardado and Herrera did a really good job of sacrificing themselves. And Guardado and Rafa were always question marks going into the game, despite what the national team medical staff said, and they'd gone over there to Holland and to Italy to help them with their recovery. I mean, even then, we knew that if they played, they weren't going to be at 100%. And that's why they came off. And I think that was one of the risks that Ferretti ended up taking, starting both of them. And that's what dictated the subs. And people were talking about the tactics. And I mean, even myself, when I was watching the game, as soon as I saw the first sub, I was like, what the hell? What are you doing? And the more I thought about it, I was like, it made sense, because the idea was obviously to win the game in regulation time with the help of Andres and Rafa. That didn't come to happen right away, so you had to make the subs. At the end of the day, they worked. So, I'm very happy with what I saw. We competed. We won. I almost want to say we dominated. I don't think that throughout the entire 120 minutes the USA dictated the pace of the game for more than combined maybe 12 or 15 minutes. They were always like 5-minute spurts after they scored. They had like a second wind, and then that was pretty much it.
Yeah, they didn't.
Overall,
Really
it was good. It was great. I'm really pleased with what I saw.
How much do you think the fact that Tuca didn't really have? I'm not going to say that there wasn't any pressure on Tuca, but I mean he knew that he was going to have 4 games and that's it. And to me, he seemed like he was very relaxed about his time there, and it's funny because right now the U.S. coach is in the hot seat. And that's something that really hasn't happened a lot in the past, 20 years because the U.S. soccer press, for the most part, they're
cheerleaders. Yeah, exactly.
And
dude, it's not a hot seat. It's a freaking lukewarm seat. He spilled his coffee on himself.
I think Tuca did have a hot seat, man. If he would have lost this, he would have failed, and then would have been gone anyway. But he still would have failed.
I understand that, but going into it, I mean, his demeanors, his press conferences and stuff, he seemed like he was just very calm and collected.
Yeah, I mean, he was fortunate. He got a good win. One thing that I noted when you guys were talking about the hustle and that Mexico and the wins off the ball that they got, I remember seeing Chicharito lose the ball, and he thought it was a foul, and he just, bared his head down and ran back to try to get possession again. That's something that you'll never see, and I talked with some U.S. fans, you'll never see from Dempsey or Josie, and they'll straight out say Josie is like the laziest player on their team. They'll never go back. Dempsey's done either. I mean, as well. He just doesn't run back. He relies on his technical skill, and if it doesn't work out, he's done. He gives up.
One of the things that I mentioned last week was matchups and the way that we match up with the U.S. On the other side of the coin, Dempsey and Altidore don't match up well with Mexico. I mean, honestly, Altidore scored in his debut against Mexico in 2008 in a friendly. That was it. He has never, ever scored against Mexico. He's never really been much of a threat. And same thing goes for Dempsey. Dempsey's best game versus Mexico was literally almost 8 years ago. That same friendly. Coincidentally, he scored a goal in that friendly that was called back. It was a pretty nice goal, too. He danced right between Osorio and Salcido and kind of curled the ball around Memo. And for some reason it got called back. I think there was an offside prior to the play. But if you guys can think of any U.S.-Mexico game over the last 6-7 years that involves those two players, Dempsey and Altidore, and tell me that they've been dangerous versus Mexico, I don't. I personally don't.
No.
Hey, isn't that about? I'm sorry. Isn't that about the time they've been in MLS? I know Dempsey was in Fulham. He was playing in England, and I think any coach in England in the Premier League that would have saw that lack of effort from him would have sat his ass on the bench, and he would have not seen the pitch. Seen the pitch for the rest of the freaking,
And he played Costa Rica.
Yeah,
right?
No, the guys that usually were the most dangerous was Bradley, and honestly he stunk it up. I mean, he was pretty bad.
I agree.
He had one dangerous opportunity, and then that was pretty much it.
But if you look at the way that he's been rated by the American media, it's like he's gotten like 4 stars. Like supposedly he was like all over. I saw him lose the ball a few times. I saw him lose a bunch of challenges to Guardado. Guardado sneaking up behind him, just taking the ball from him. Even Herrera too. It's like I just don't really see him. I don't think he had a very good game. I don't know what they saw in particular, but I don't think he had a good game at all.
Is that Bradley you're talking about?
I think Mexican.
Yeah, Bradley. I mean, obviously he had the assist. He had a very good assist. He had another play. Obviously, you guys were talking about where he kind of in the first half he found a little bit of space and then he got greedy and took a shot instead of like passing the ball wide. But other than that, I mean, I can't remember any other moments he had that were like shining moments.
One time he took the ball towards the left, and there was some space, and he attracted the players, and then he hit it with his left foot to the right side, which caught caught Gordito off balance a little bit, but it went far right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
You know what? Defending wise, Bradley kept the freaking scoreline respectable, in my opinion. From what I saw, like almost like a lot of the attacks that ended up fizzling out is because he was just there. You know, he was tracking back, he was blocking the freaking lanes, or just anticipating the play before these guys could you know, develop it. And so I just think he was just trying to do too much for one guy. But I thought defending wise, he kept the scoreline respectable. They could have lost by a lot more.
I think the Mexican defense compressed real well too. Like the midfield, they marked him. They compressed on him like double, you know, with 2 or 3 people to either make him give up the ball or lose it.
Yeah, I mean, Bradley was shut down. That, you know, he couldn't connect with the overlapping runs from the fullbacks. I mean, he did defend, I guess, well, like you said. But as far as, you know, joining in the offense and doing those transitional plays, that's where what surprised me the most was how ineffective he was, you know, starting the attack, because it was really just non-existent, you know. I guess the one player, I guess to me the only player that really stood out was the goalkeeper. So I mean, he had a pretty good game.
Guzan, yeah, he had a decent game. I mean, I feel like we, you know, when you mention the goalkeeper having a good game, then I think that says a lot about the field players.
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, and I took a few notes when I was watching the game, and I watched it again, obviously, you know, after, you know, with a cooler head, and to me, the most important duels were actually Moreno did a very good job versus Dempsey. He had a couple mishaps, especially with the goal that he doesn't track the run of Wood behind him. But most importantly, Diego Reyes won, I think, and this is not an exact stat, but he won 78% of the duels he had with Jermaine Jones. When Jermaine Jones started pinching in and trying to join the attack, it was always Reyes who stepped up to challenge him, with obviously the help of whatever midfielder was near him. But Reyes won most of those duels, and the few times the U.S. squeezed through and tried to get, it was always very sloppy and almost very rushed. And to me, that sort of exemplifies the kind of level that they have right now. And I don't think it's just right now. This has been the kind of the way that they've been playing for the last 2 or 3 years. And I said it last summer during the World Cup. They were outplayed by every team they played in the World Cup, with the exception of only maybe 25 minutes versus Portugal. Other than that, I cannot, you know, like competitive games, I don't, I mean, what ends up happening is water finds its level, and the U.S. have been found out in that sense. They don't have, the team is not as good as the fans think it is. And obviously I think the same can be said about Mexico. I don't think the team is as good as we sometimes think it is, especially right now. We're sort of on a high right now because of victory. But we have elements that can sort of hide those deficiencies. They don't. I mean, when you talk about players like Yedlin and the kind of impact that he had, you talk about pace and the way that he finds space and just runs onto the ball. Like, we're not talking about any actual plays that are being constructed that are going to lead to any chances or have chances. In saying that, I think the most important aspect of this game for Mexico that has to be talked about is the fact that for most of the game, every offensive play was most of them were finished. It ended with a shot, with a cross, with some sort of offensive. There was always an execution to the play, which is something that we sometimes complain about when it comes to Mexico, because they knock the ball around and find a space, and then, you know, it's a bad pass or a bad execution here, and then, or the pass is too far behind Chicharito, or it's too, you know, whatever. The plays were finished. There were shots on goal. We ended up with something like 24 shots, and 15 or 16 were shots on goal. I think that's something very important. We have to highlight that because I think it's going to play a big part in the next coach's plan. Because you talked about that, and I'm not going to get ahead of myself here because we're going to talk about that later, but you did talk about that in a press conference, but I thought it was very important. I think that's one of the things, aside from the intensity and the fact that we won nearly every secondary ball, the fact that we finished nearly every single offensive play is something that has to be praised and has to be talked about, and I think it's a good thing that we can build from.
They were precise too with their passing, and in previous games, and it's sort of like an on-off. Like you can be precise one day and then pretty bad the next. They were on with all their passing. There weren't any, because a lot of times in Mexican games I'll see like them pass it like out of bounds or totally off mark and things like that, and I'll be like, what the heck is that? But this time all their passes were on, and they were even passing to like Guardado and Herrera right in the middle, like right above the semicircle. And I was like, what's going on? The U.S. is letting them do that? But yeah, I mean, I agree. Like you were saying, they were finishing, they were getting opportunities. It was sort of surprising. And you know who stinks? Who was stinking it up out there? Beasley. I don't know what that guy's doing on the field.
Hey, I want to make a comment about the U.S. You know, this national team that they have right now, this is every Spazzo's wet dream. How many years have we been hearing and reading that they want their biggest, their strongest, and their fastest on the freaking field, and then they'll be a world-class level. And that that guy can, you know, all these guys, Altidore, Yedlin, these guys are all they're fast, they're strong, you know, they're well built physically, but you know they got no freaking skill. So
yeah, I think we were talking earlier. They're lazy though. We were talking earlier. I'd be a lot more scared of Yedlin, that Zardes guy. Get Dempsey out, get Altidore out, put in that guy Wood, put in that blonde-haired dude that looks like, I forget his name, even Johansson or somebody. Like all these young guys.
Yeah, Johansson, yeah.
Well, not Johansson, but there's that other dude that's blonde hair. He played during the Costa Rica game. Those guys are fast. Maybe not like strong like Altidore, but those guys have speed, and I'm more scared of those than Altidore.
You know,
Don't be scared, buddy.
Right now, the U.S. the program has to start thinking, because, granted, you know, they've been beating, you know, Mexican friendlies, and you know they can chant the two, you know, those that said all they want, but I mean, what's the statistic? What, five games, or like in championship games in CONCACAF?
We've only lost one Gold Cup final to the U.S., and that was like in the 90s.
Well,
2007.
2007 with Hugo.
That's true. I forgot about that.
You know, but it's the thing is clearly one-sided, and what we're, you know, going back to is the U.S. has basically, their program is designed to play for the result. It's not designed to play to create or to hold possession.
At the senior level?
And
at the senior level?
At the senior, well, no, the entire you know, system. I mean, in fact, a couple months back, the American Youth Association, they were talking about how basically, you know, coaches at the youth levels, they're teaching their kids to play for the result, which in the long run it's detrimental, because you're basically teaching kids, okay, maybe you're scoring off a set piece, or you're scoring off a counter attack, or you're basically putting your players in a high percentage, they're playing the percentages, which, you know, it sounds logical, but in the end, you're not teaching these kids how to create. And, you know, going back to what, you know, was said earlier, that since going back 2 years, a year ago, the U.S., they've been playing pretty bad. And I mean, honestly, you can play the cat and mouse, you know, for a while, but sooner or later, it's going to bite you, and it's starting to bite the U.S. I mean, at least. I don't want. Hello?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thought, Ronnie. Sorry. I want to say something.
Finish. No, go ahead.
I just wanted to. I don't want to go on a tangent too much, but at the youth level, the U.S. soccer they're trying. When Reina was the what was it called, the U.S. Soccer Development Academy technical director.
Yeah.
He put out a document where he said, I think it was written by Quiroz. It's based off the Spanish doctor.
Oh, the 10-year plan?
Yeah, no. That was the Quiroz plan. This is something else. Some Spanish doctor. I don't recall his name, but anyways, in the document they say, okay, we need to do what's it called? Position specific training. Oh, functional training, where you train the technical skills you practice are based on the position you play. They wanted basically in the document he details we want the U.S. Soccer Academy teams playing 4-3-3, but it's a document. It's like there's no power behind it, because that's only 10% of their youth players that they see at the soccer academy, and you really don't know if it's their best 10%, because it's still a pay-to-play system. The parents got to pay for their travel, the coach fees, they got to buy the uniform. So that's still, if you're traveling from LA to freaking to play a team in New York twice a year, that's and you're going all over the country, that's still a heavy expense. Not the best players will have the economics to basically the money to pay for that. And I think it's just their pay-to-play system is really what's biting them in the ass.
There's no doubt that a lot of kids are not being scouted because they don't have the financial means to participate. But but even so, the U.S. still has one of the highest, if not the highest, registered player pools in the world. So
they have the highest.
So even if we're using that number, that they still have the highest player pool in the world, it's still the system that they use throughout is where they're basically teaching the kids how to play for the result, which I think in the long run is detrimental, because you're not teaching the kids how to be instinctive. They're not being creative. They're not being they're not curious enough to know to basically deviate from the game plan, how to break one-on-ones, how to attack. And I think that is the problem with the entire U.S. program.
Break down organized defense. I agree.
I mean, you can be organized to a certain degree, but there comes a point where the talent is what's going to determine a team or a program lifting titles. I mean, at least at
the senior level.
Well, we can go on a tangent here, talking about what's wrong with the U.S. program. I think there's a lot more many more that I don't think we even have time for an hour to talk about. We can start with the MLS calendar, but anyways, seriously, there's like a myriad.
Fernando, I'm sorry. I think their national team got worse once their league started, because now their players, instead of playing in stronger leagues, they're now playing at the MLS level. Definitely, you're right. The MLS definitely hurt them.
Yeah, definitely.
At least.
Yeah, that sort of plays into the whole delusion, the self-delusion that MLS is somehow this very high quality league, which it's not. It's really not. And of course it was going to hurt their national team players to play in environments that are not competitive. They're not. There's no expectation for results. If a team doesn't make the playoffs, then there's always next year. If a team performs badly, there's always next year. I mean, at least in Mexico, in contrast, if you don't play well, you are going to be relegated at some point. I mean, right now, obviously, we all know about Chivas and the trouble they're going through.
And they're playing well now.
Say what?
They're playing well now. Those are fighting words, man.
No, of course.
You got Angelica back too.
Well, if the season was described in one game, yeah, I guess.
Well, no, I mean, there is still the shadow of relegation that hangs on the team, and it probably will remain that at least through the next tournament. But the Americans don't have sort of that cutthroat experience for their players, and you can't expect players that are playing in sort of a weird calendar year to be ready to play these kind of cutthroat games. I mean, it's all like the body language is obviously disappointing for them. I mean, you can tell the players were disappointed. I don't think they lacked effort. I don't think they lacked heart during this game. They were just beaten by a better team. And this is something we talked about last week. We wanted to see Mexico come out there full throttle and stamp themselves onto the game, and they did that. Not only just do that, they maintained it for the entire game, with the exception of a few lulls here and there, especially when the U.S. scored, like I said earlier, which I think is natural. I mean, I don't know. Aside from Barcelona, you rarely see teams and obviously Bayern Munich, you rarely see teams that just dominate the rival for the entire 90 minutes, especially in international soccer. You don't see that because international soccer is a little more compact and you don't have the spaces. I mean, one of the things that to me is interesting is you look at Jesus Corona, like Tecatito, like it took him a couple of games this summer to find his rhythm with the national team. He didn't just start playing really well right away. I mean, the preparation games before Copa America, he was out there, he's making the plays, but his timing wasn't right. He didn't get the rhythm of the game. And even then, against the U.S., he didn't quite find his rhythm.
No, he didn't.
You know what I mean? He didn't quite find his rhythm.
I thought Tecatito had a better tournament on Copa America than actually the Gold Cup in this last match. Yeah, I think he's probably getting burned down. Who knows?
I don't know if he's burnt down. I mean, he's the only guy that played in both tournaments, and obviously that was obviously designed because he's one of the youngest players, and he's got to have very, very clean lungs, and he's probably eager to prove himself. And honestly, and I'm going to deviate again very quickly, I still don't think Osorio is going to use him as a starter right away.
He's been a sub. He was a sub in Copa America, and he was a sub in Gold Cup.
Exactly. And he was also a sub in this game. I think that some people, and I would have liked to see him, one part of me would have liked to see him start, but I knew he wasn't going to, because I knew he wasn't going to give the kind of effort that we saw from Uribe or Jimenez, and especially not from Chicharito. So it made sense. And to that point, if you look at the goal the U.S. scored, the 2-2, when Yedlin gets the ball on the right side, Tecatito is literally jogging behind him. And then once Yedlin picks up the pace and he sees the space in front of him and starts dribbling, you can see Layun waving at Tecatito to come in and close him down, and he doesn't really do it because it's not his game. I mean, I'm not gonna knock him for it. It's just really not his game. He doesn't have that quote unquote desgaste. But I think that like you saw from Jimenez, unfortunately for him, in the first half, he's the one who commits the foul on Beasley that leads to the free kick goal. Look how far back Jimenez tracked back to make that play. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if Tecatito is going to be doing that at any point in his career. You can even compare him to Vela. Vela doesn't really do that, and I mean, we kind of saw it a little bit with the Panama game. The intensity from forwards to close down the opposing center backs and defenders wasn't quite there. Obviously, for a lot of reasons. I mean, it was pretty much the epitome of a Molero. But I wanted to see a little bit more from Vela. I'll just say that we're not going to get into that right now. The tactical design from Ferretti was absolutely perfect. It was absolutely perfect. I mean, you look at a 4-3-3 and you don't think that Jimenez wide and Uribe wide is going to work. I mean, it just doesn't seem like they're the kind of players that are going to fulfill those kind of roles in an efficient manner, but they did. They really, really did. And it's hard to say if it's because of the opponent or the components of the game, given that it was a one-off game and we had to win it and everybody was pumped up about it. I don't know if Osorio trots that lineup against El Salvador, if it'll be as efficient. Obviously, understand that El Salvador is not at the level of the U.S., regardless of how bad they are right now. I don't know if it's going to work again in that sense. I'm just very happy to see that level of intensity from the entire team, because we talked about it last week. There was a lot of talk off the field, mostly from the U.S., the fans, the media, the players, which I don't understand why they thought it was a good idea to go out there and really hang themselves up to be exposed the way they were, because I saw it as it was going to happen. You don't get to talk that much smack and not back it up on the field, and we did that. We went out there and we did that. We talked on the field for the entire game.
Yeah,
Tuca no muerde.
Yeah, Tuca said that no vamos a hociconear.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
One thing though, I mean, I know it's been said that Mexico dominated this game, and we went into extra time. It could have very easily been a typical U.S.-Mexico game where Mexico dominates possession, and all the U.S. needed was one more goal.
Yeah.
And it could have easily gone the other way, which is sort of surprising. But
well, you know, what was it? Two clear penalties that they didn't call. But honestly, I didn't want Mexico to win like that because of what happened in the Gold Cup.
Yeah, that's true.
So I mean, I'm glad Mexico won the right way. You know, they won playing good football. They won, scoring good goals.
Yeah, it's the luck of the Rose Bowl, man. I was thinking Gio did his work last time. Now somebody else has to do it this time, and it worked out with Paul.
Yeah.
And one other thing on Tecatito, I think like Fernando was saying, he did do better in Copa America. In this game, I think he was doing well against Fabian Johnson. But then, and it wasn't really to credit the other guy. I forget, Brad Evans, I think he was the one who came in. But he sort of, just fumbled the ball a little bit. Not necessarily because of Brad Evans, but he just, was too anxious and made Brad Evans look a little bit good. So he didn't really Tecatito didn't really play real well, as well as he should have. But I know he did get one cross in. But he didn't really have too many opportunities, so I think there's a bright future for him still.
Well, he had a nice shot in actually, Tecatito. So, but yeah, I was a little disappointed by his performance. But what I thought was amazing was just how Tuca already knew that this game was gonna be va a haber golpes y madrazos, and that's why he put in Güemes. We already knew if he would have put him as a starter, he would have probably, by the way, how many yellow cards we had at the beginning of the match, he would have probably gotten a double booked for sure. So I thought that timing of that sub was perfect.
I love Güemes. Güemes was awesome. I love the way his stance and everything, the way he just hustles and concentration during the whole game.
Yeah, some people say, the subs were horrible. No, they were not. Those subs were perfectly timed, especially like that. I think the best one was that Güemes sub. That was just the way como metió la patadura, and right away, like in the first 2 minutes, he already had 2 fouls. So,
I do think though the Rivas sub was sort of surprising, and I think he was sort of like part of the cause of that one Bobby Wood goal, because he didn't he didn't come out the way he should have. He thought he was scared of the runner of that one dude running on the wing, and he just sort of left him out too much.
No, he didn't commit. He didn't commit to the tackle. But to the point that Fernando was making, Güemes came on, and I think he had a yellow card within the first 10 minutes that he was on. And once he kind of found his rhythm and settled, he grew into the game a lot. And I think that gave him confidence, and I think that confidence showed in yesterday's game versus Panama, where I thought he was by far the best midfielder, even with Jonah being there, and obviously when Hector Herrera came in the second half, Güemes was there. He was cleaning up and he was dishing it out, and we talked about it again. We talked about intensity last week, and with Rafa Marquez starting, what I saw that happen was he started as obviously as the only central midfielder in a 4-3-3, But as the game wore on, he kept reverting back to that sort of libero. He kept dropping back as a center back, and that kind of forced Guardado and Herrera to start pinching in. And those were the moments where the U.S. started getting the ball a little bit more. So obviously Rafa had to come out at some point. And when he came out, who else are you going to put in? It was either going to be Güemes or Jonathan. And given the circumstances of the game, Güemes was the right call. I mean, if we're honest, Güemes was the right call. You needed someone in there to start dishing it out. And because the thing is, Jones started pinching in, and Jones is gamesmanship. When people talk about the U.S. being a clean team and being Boy Scouts, it's laughable because Jones is a guy who's like 6'3" and like 200 pounds, but he goes down easily and he rolls around and he's grimacing at the ref, and it's just it's laughable. And Güemes goes in there and just takes him out. Dude, Güemes is like 5'8", 5'9". Takes him out, looks at him, he stares him down. Get up, dude. Get up and play on. You're so much. You know what I mean? It's like that's what
nobody took a picture.
He goes down easier than some of the female posters on Big Soccer, right?
Who?
Jones?
Jones?
I'm lost. I don't even know what the question was.
Oh, I said Jones goes down easier than some of the girls on Big Soccer.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
What is that thing?
It's snap.
Honestly, Dempsey and Altidore are the same way. For like Altidore's he's built like the guy's huge, man. Like the way he goes down, I mean, it's just like, dude, come on, man, get up, you know. But ultimately, Güemes. When Ferretti started with Guardado and Rafa, we sort of should have known that at some point they were going to have to come off. So I think that the gamble was really to try to win the game before those two guys had to come off. So then whatever subs you made could hold down a score and we could just simply run on the clock and win the game. That obviously didn't happen, which is not really that surprising. However, Rivas, I don't really think Rivas has much of a future with the national team. And if you think about it, this is the second time in a cup final versus the U.S. where we make a debut for a center back. In 2011, it was none other than Hector Reynoso, who comes on to shut it down for the last 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and he was there. He cleaned it up, and he dished it out a little bit, and now it was Rivas' turn, and he came on, and he was decent. I agree with you, though. He fumbled a little bit on that second goal. He didn't know when to come out. He kind of stutter-stepped, and then boom. They scored, and it was, of course that was going to happen. I mean, it's not a U.S.-Mexico game without them getting a goal against the run of play.
I think you'll keep having those type of players on the roster as long as the FMF sticks to we got to follow the process by the letter with the players, where if you have a talented youngster that's ready to make the jump, they're not gonna speed up his process because they want him to go through the whole program. I don't know if that's the right idea, if that's the right way to go about it, but that seems to be their approach thus far, and they've talked about it several times regarding that. But I wanted to make a comment too. When Güemes came in, what I noticed was HH's role, it changed, and it just seemed like the attack, Mexico's attack, it flowed a little more. It's like because he had more room to operate, and he wasn't, Guardado kind of they weren't tripping into each other's,
Yeah, I noticed that a little bit. So I guess to transition a little bit, it was a good game. I think the confidence in the national team grew, but shouldn't grow too much. I think because it could have gone, U.S. could have scored and had had a few chances. But so for this next cycle, Osorio, what do you guys think of those of you who saw the press conference? What do you guys think of him coming on? His comments that he made.
I like it.
I didn't watch the entire. Like I said, I didn't watch the entire press conference. So I just read bits and pieces.
One of the
Everything that I read seemed cliched, so it's not like any. I mean, I intend to see the entire press conference, sometime tonight or maybe tomorrow. But everything that I read, typical,
couple
something
things
that you
I
expect.
saw. Yeah, a couple things I saw was that Rafa's still going to be considered, and naturalizados are going to be, everyone's welcome.
Well,
Those are the two things that I caught.
Well, yeah, he's probably going to go after Benedetto. He's probably going to go after.
It's not a bad idea, I don't think. Think about it. Benedetto's 24 years old, one of the better forwards in the league. I don't know if he's starting material, obviously, but I don't think that having players like him on the bench is a bad idea. I mean,
the thing with Benedetto, he's actually, there's off the top of my head, I mean, foreigners that went to that went to America that were able to produce basically almost like since day one or the first season. I mean, Bam Zamorano, Piojo Lopez, Chucho Benitez.
Yep.
Benedetto.
Pino Cuevas.
And Pepino Cuevas. I don't know about him. But Benedetto from the first season, he's been able to produce. I mean, he's been producing. So I have a feeling that Osorio may call him up.
He wants to come on too, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
But he has to wait, doesn't he? Because
he does. He has to wait. I know he's going to have to wait. I forget. That
was one of the trade-offs that, if I'm not mistaken, that they would lower the waiting time for Mexican citizenship, but it didn't really necessarily qualify these players right away for the national team.
Yeah.
I think they have to wait. So I think he has to wait another 2 years, which still puts him at a very decent age to be part of the pool. In 2 years' time, I don't know if I would necessarily pick him over a guy like Marco Bueno. I really like what I've seen of him with the Olympic team, and I know we're going to get into that later, but I think the ultimate goal is to have as many players that you can call upon from the bench that are going to be impact players, and Benedetto could be one of those. He could be one of those. I like him. His skill set, I like it a lot better than Vuoso or even guys like Carlos Ochoa, for example. I think that he could potentially contribute something to the national team.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we have anything. I don't think that Benedetto is better than any of our current crop, so I don't think he's necessary.
I agree with that.
I don't think he's necessary for him to be called up. We have more than enough to cover his position.
Yeah, I don't know if he'd get any playing time. They probably will call him up. I notice, the player pool is gonna get a little crowded because Osorio, he made one comment. He made I didn't see the whole press conference. Like Ronnie said, there's one comment he made that I read where he mentions, hey, there's a couple players that are interesting in the youth pool that we're gonna take a look at, and we might be calling up, and one of them was Chucky Lozano. I guess we're gonna get into that later, but just based on Osorio's comment, like where he's gonna, there's some players that deserve to be, they need to be bled in already. I guess I don't know if that's the right approach, but that's what he's gonna do, based on his statements he plans to do.
The comment that you guys made earlier about him in his press conference saying that he wants to take the pool to like 50 and start scouting and stuff. Honestly, I think that's the wrong approach right now because our players are fairly young. But what I'm afraid is going to happen, and it's one of the things that Avoca did, during his time, was that he what I don't want Osorio to do is to basically increase the player pool and use that as an excuse for bad results. You know what I mean? Because okay, maybe we'll start playing more Molero games and stuff like that, and we may start losing and stuff. Even if we're losing these Molero games, losing starts to become contagious, and I don't want him to think that okay, we're losing these games because I gotta check out this guy and I gotta check out this player and I gotta check out this player. I mean, we're basically starting the World Cup. We're starting the qualifiers, like next month.
You got Tuca wings, so it's not so bad.
So I mean, we're starting the World Cup qualifiers. If anything, it should be the reverse, where you're starting to narrow it down to work for your team that's going to be in Russia and in the Confederations Cup. So I mean, I wouldn't increase the player pool that big, that wide, that amount. I mean, that's just my opinion, but. What do you guys think?
Yeah, you lose cohesion if you have all these different players coming in and you're experimenting when it's time to group together, get used to each other, because we're playing. These guys are playing in all over the world in different clubs and everything.
The timing of his signing, I think, it's bad. Whenever there's a new coach that comes in or new manager. Like when Hugo came in, he called in a bunch of guys. Almost every call-up was had like 10 new players. So he looked at a lot of players in the league. He gave Johnny Magallona his debut. He played him in the Gold Cup, and when Chepo came in, he did the same thing. He kind of cast a wide net, and I don't see an issue with that specifically. But I think just because now Osorio is expected to step in and deliver results. He's got a qualifier next month already.
But Chepo and Hugo did that at day one when you started your 4-year process.
Yeah.
Osorio doesn't have that luxury. He's basically starting the World Cup qualifiers. Next month.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, he's not going to. I mean, and he won't have to. I mean. He's going to realize he's going to realize pretty soon that because the first game was against the Wilburs, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I mean this is gonna. I mean they're going to sit back and they're going to park the bus, and it's going to get frustrating.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I don't think he's going to have a lot of time to experiment right away. I mean, I mentioned it earlier. I don't think we're going to see a lot of differences in the player pool immediately right away because it doesn't make sense. You don't go into these World Cup qualifiers with the intention of experimenting. And if that's his game plan, we're going to have a new coach in the spring of next year. It's just not going to work. So I don't personally expect any big changes right away. I think that next summer, depending on this Copa America taking place or not, that's maybe when we'll start seeing some sort of experimentation in that sense. And I also feel, based on his comments today, that any sort of experimentation will probably involve the younger players in the Olympic team first before he starts looking at other potential players. Because one thing about Osorio is that he likes working with a core of younger players. He made a comment today talking about the current player pool, and like you mentioned just recently, Ronnie, it's very young. It's a very young core. I think Guardado is like the oldest one when you look at the core. Everyone else.
Oribe.
Yeah.
Well, Oribe, I mean, yeah, but Oribe is the one who's going to probably be making room for a Benedetto or Marco Bueno. I don't think Lozano is going to be playing as a forward because that's one thing that he also talked about in a press conference today. That his preferred formation is a 4-3-3.
Yep.
And instead of using traditional number 9s like we saw with Tuca on Saturday as wide forwards, he wants players that are going to beat their opposing players off the dribble, which means that Lozano fits into that. Corona, possibly Gio. He mentioned Vela. He mentioned Vela when he said that. I don't know about Vela playing that role, to be honest, but I don't really see a lot of experimentation right away. And considering the fact that we do have 2 World Cup qualifiers next month, and we also have 2 World Cup qualifiers in March against Canada, I don't really see any of that happening right away. It's all going to really depend. I don't think we're going to have a good idea of what he's really planning on doing until the Confederations Cup 2 years from now. We're not going to have a good idea of what's going to be happening because you're going to have World Cup qualifiers during that stretch as well. So that's where this idea of the 50 players comes into play because if we look back at Chepo in 2013, the Gold Cup, I mean, if we look back, the Gold Cup squad wasn't that bad, I guess. I think the bigger problems with that team was playing Chispa Velarde in the midfield. I mean, that was a head scratcher, really. And then all of a sudden he busted out a 4-3-3 during that tournament, which is he hadn't really done that. And then he just puts the players out there and sort of figure it out. But from that tournament, we got Miguel Ayun. I mean,
which Gold Cup? Sorry.
The 2013 Gold Cup.
Oh yeah, he did bust out a 4-3-3, dude.
We played a 4-3-3, and it opened up against Panama at the Rose Bowl. At the Rose Bowl, we went back there 2 years after winning it. Puts out a 4-3-3, and we got overrun in the midfield by Panama. Chispa Velarde was chasing shadows, man. It was really embarrassing.
The Ron Castro was in there.
Oh man, I mean, who else was Jimenez played that? Marco Fabian, Ayun,
Marquez Lugo.
Coincidentally, Marquez Lugo was the starter for the 2011 Copa America squad with Oribe on the bench. I mean, that's probably the only black spot on Tena's tenure there when he was with the national team. That was just, I don't know why. I don't know. I think Marquez Lugo stopped being a national team caliber player a long time ago. I don't know what they thought they were doing bringing him to the Copa America, but he was just not. I don't know what he was doing there.
Because he played for Chivas at that time. That's why.
He was playing well. Wasn't Team Cruyff at Chivas, and Marquez Lugo just came off that great year.
Yeah, he did have a good year going into that, but even then, his qualities, he was. I don't see how you. I mean.
And it was either him or Omar Bravo. Remember, to be called up.
Omar Bravo got called up. He actually subbed into the qualifier at Azteca when we were banging on the door, and then Chepo throws him out there. It was like, come on, like Omar Bravo there's nothing more he can get to the national team. Obviously, there's even talk about him going to the national team right now. I don't see it. I just don't see it.
He's
what I remember about that game is maybe it's my memory playing tricks on me, but didn't Chaton get injured like within the first 20 minutes of the Panama game?
Yep. Yes, he did.
That's what I remember. The second half is he moved Fabian to a more midfield role, central playmaking role, and I think that's probably why they got overrun because freaking Chaton got injured again.
Yeah, he brought in Alejandro Castro off the bench, and Castro and Chispa Velarde got completely overrun. They were so in over their heads, and then we tied the game on a very nice. I think it was Israel Jimenez.
It was.
Chipped it in to Marco Fabian, and he had a lovely finish. But after that, I mean, Panama.
And he subbed them out in the second half, dude.
I have nightmares about that tournament. It was terrible.
I had me scratching my head too.
So, I guess moving on to another topic. We can still talk Osorio if you guys have any more things to go on, but I usually 1 second on the Mexico-Panama game.
When I saw the picture, of Osorio finally, when I saw the picture on my phone of Osorio with the Mexican jacket and stuff like that, I mean it was just like no, and I was like no, and I'm like I kept like in my head I just kept thinking of the jerky voice of like, God help us, Jesus. God and baby Jesus help us.
And he was sleeping. He was sleeping just last night. Do you see that picture of him sleeping during the Mexico-Panama game?
That needs to be photoshopped.
I was sleeping. Honestly, I was sleeping almost during that game too.
Yeah, it was a terrible game, man.
All right, so what's the next subject? America's 99th birthday? No.
I didn't even know about that.
What I heard is Team America, including the refs.
When you have money, you have money. You don't pay the refs.
I don't know if they pay the refs. I think the refs are scared. They're like, oh, got to do it, America.
Well, there's one ref that's making these allegations that the whole league is scripted, that it's a novela written by Televisa.
They've been saying that since like 1950.
Yeah, and it's a bad move on his part because they asked him for proof, and then he went quiet right after that. So don't talk a big game in Mexico if you can't back it up.
No, I mean, we were talking about this or chatting about this. You're still seeing, the national team they're still living off, America's glory moments, of the past couple of years. Because at the Mexico game, you had guys, you had Moy, you had who else? Jimenez, obviously, you had Layun, you had Paul.
Aguilar, obviously.
Yeah, Aguilar. So.
One thing about Paul Aguilar. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but wanted to say this real quick. There was a play during the U.S. game, right at the end of the game in regulation time, very similar to the goal, where Paul Aguilar decides to rip a shot when he had Chicharito wide open in the middle, and I remember watching. I'm saying, God damn it, man! Like you wanted to be a hero. You could have just filtered it into the middle, and of course, 20 minutes later, he redeemed himself. And I gotta tell you, as I was watching that play unfold live. I'm at a bar up here in the Northeast where everyone's watching the Dodgers and the Mets game. There's 7 TVs at this bar. Only one of them has the soccer game on. Nobody's watching it but me and some other jerk-off with a U.S. jersey. The moment that Jimenez chipped that ball over his head, I stood up. And I just put my hands up in the air because I just had a feeling that the way that Paul Aguilar's face, the way his concentration and the way he was looking at the ball, it's like you just knew he was going to catch it lovely, and he caught it lovely. And I was ricocheted. I jumped. I mean, I don't know what I screamed. People were looking at me. I was like, "Fuck everyone." I'm sorry.
I was so disappointed in his celebration. Because he has usually some of the most ugliest celebrations. I was hoping he'd do one of those, but
that crippled leg one. That's the awesomest one.
I love the celebration. He didn't know what to do. He just like, screw it. I'm gonna just break my own neck on this billboard here.
Yeah.
Why not?
That's a weird ass celebration, man. Normally he does that little dance where he's got this huge balls, right?
That would have been it. That was if there was ever a time to do that, other than a Chivas America game, that was it.
Yeah, that was a lost opportunity right there. That would have capped off the night right there.
Hey, I saw your video, Cheekies, of over there at the game. So I saw that you ran into Wiso, and who else did you run into from the big soccer crew?
Joel gave me a ride to Pasadena.
Uh-huh.
Then we were finding parking. That's pretty much it. Oh, I met up with. I saw Cesar walking around. I saw Sergio Tristan from Pancho Villa's army, the founder. Met him, talked to him a little bit. That was it. That was pretty much it. But
yeah. Did Big Soccer not do a party?
No, I don't think they do anything, really.
It's just everybody for themselves.
The Pachanga group, you mean, or the actual?
No, yeah. Didn't they used to have like a Pachanga group?
Yeah, that's gone.
They're shady, man. It's like really elite now. You gotta. It's like hush hush. They don't talk about it anymore. I don't know what happened.
It's poor fake, man.
There's nobody getting together to organize it. That's really what it is. Like, everybody just went on their own. Like, me, I didn't even go. But, like, that's really what it is now, is that it's mostly just everybody on their own. Get there however you can.
Yeah. Oh. I guess Joel wants to talk Olympic squad.
Yes.
Okay. Or the Olympic team. I saw that one goal, I think it was the second goal, where I think he shoots it with his right or left, and that thing just curves and totally messes up that goalie. That was awesome. He always scored that.
Yeah, it was a golazo.
No, I kept. I was reading. What is it? The Honduran newspaper, Yes. For some reason, I don't know. I kept reading that throughout the week and stuff like that. Because for some reason, I don't know why, I'm just drawn to that paper. Reading what the Washingtons have to
it's
say.
so sensationalist.
Yeah, especially reading what the La Raya has to say. That
that guy.
yeah, that guy.
That guy's still around.
He's still around, dude.
He's so feminine. I love it.
Yeah.
My favorite part was when Jose Ramon was calling him Hector Huerta's brother or lookalike or something like dogging on Hector Huerta. Poor Hector Huerta, man, they were dogging him like no other.
So, do you guys think? Do you think Mexico has the juice to repeat the gold?
I don't know. If you look at the field, I think the field this time is a little bit tougher. There's a couple more European teams. Denmark is in it, and they have a pretty decent under 23 team. So does Portugal. So I think it's going to be tough. I don't know necessarily if we're going to win again, but I do agree with Yayo de la Torre has been saying for the entire tournament that this team is much better than the last team. I wasn't sure I agree with him, to be honest. But I feel like the addition of Pizarro and Eric Aguirre as the fullbacks has really done a good number on this team. They've been extremely solid. I mean, they have been really – this is probably the best tournament that this team has played because the Pan American games were so-so.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many of you guys watched those games. It was the performances were they were just laboring and Mexico was grinding down games and winning them kind of, but not really very convincingly.
That's where they lost to Uruguay in the
final. They beat them in the group stages, and then lost in the final, which was a pretty decent game. But I think the addition of the two fullbacks, because in that tournament we used Edgardo Marin as a fullback, and he just didn't really cut it. He didn't really cut it. Pizarro, for me, has been the best player for Mexico for this tournament.
One of the things that has been kind of iffy about this team is, Cubo Torres, he's been on the national team before, and he just, it seems to me that at the national team level, at least at the senior national team level, it just seems like I don't think he's going to cut it. I don't think he has the size. I don't think he has, the strength. For some reason, he's doing. I guess from what I'm told, he's doing pretty well in MLS, and that kind of surprised me because MLS is a more physical league.
But it's slower.
Well, true. Yeah.
They give you more.
Well, the MLS is actually faster because it's more vertical. But as far as the Mexican League is faster in the sense of the passing.
Yep.
So, I mean, there comes a point where in certain sectors of the field, the game's a lot faster in Mexico because of the technical passing. But I don't know. I think in Potro he's been doing really well as a coach at the youth level. So hopefully they do well.
I'm surprised that you said Pizarro has been the best. I thought Lozano, dude, when every time he comes in as a sub, he's just freaking too dynamic to create havoc for he breaks down those defenses that
he does. He has. He's offensively he's our best player. But I also feel like his execution has been kind of off. Like, I mean, he gets in there, he dribbles by drive past players, but then he does one extra play or he takes an extra touch, and he doesn't always complete the plays. And the reason I say Pizarro has been the best player is because he's playing as a left back. Like, I didn't think I was going to see that, And by playing as a left back, it allows the team to sort of mold into this like 3-4-3 formation, and then it just speeds up the transition because Pizarro, I watch every single game, and and I'm going to tell you this. I think I saw him lose the ball at most throughout all these games twice. And I mean that. I mean twice. It was never more than 3 or 4 times throughout the entire tournament that he lost the ball. But his presence and his ability to really dribble out of trouble and really just get the ball out of his feet cleanly, that's what allows Guti and Dedos and all the other guys to get involved and really transition a lot quicker. We didn't see that from Potro's teams in the past because Abeja and he used Van Rankin as a fullback. Those guys don't have that ability, and I think out of this Olympic team, a lot of players have the potential to be full national team players. None more so, in my opinion, than Pizarro, Salcedo, and Lozano. And I stick by what I said because I think Pizarro was the best Mexican player in the whole tournament.
Not you don't think Dedos is great?
Dedos kind of plateaued a little bit during the tournament. Once the spaces closed down, the other option was to take out Aguirre and slide Dedos back, which he never did. He kept him strictly in the midfield, and when he wasn't finding a rhythm in the space, he would simply sub him out for Daniel Alvarez from Atlas or whatever. So, no, I think Dedos has what it takes right now to challenge Paul Aguilar. And actually, I think that Osorio is going to probably make that one of his first moves. But as far as like full national team careers, Pizarro is a guy that came up through Pachuca, no national team experience. I mean, he didn't even go to the Under-20 World Cup in the summer. He did not go, which I think is a huge mistake. He did not go, but he's a player that he can play in the midfield. Right now he's playing in the midfield for Pachuca. He's playing as an interior. He can play as a right back. Obviously now he can play as a left back. He can play as a wide midfielder. We don't have a lot of players that can do that. And that alone, that ability alone, coupled with what Osorio wants from his players, is one of the reasons why I think he's going to have a much, much more stable and higher future with the national team than most of the other guys.
Your 3 overage players, who do you guys got? It's not that hard, man.
Well, I wouldn't waste it on a goalkeeper. In fact, I wouldn't waste it on a goalkeeper. I think, I don't know, maybe.
Is Jürgen Damm older, or is he within the age limit?
He's older. He misses the cutoff by I think a year.
I think for sure a center forward.
Yeah, definitely a forward.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's Chicharito. Maybe I think Jimenez would probably complement this group a little better.
But those overage players, I don't think they don't have to accept the call up, or the clubs cannot release them, right?
No, they have to because the Olympics are now on the FIFA calendar.
Oh, nice.
Since 2012, they are after what Messi did in 2008, where he was like pretty much like screw it, I'm going, and Barcelona threw a fit. FIFA put the Olympics on the calendar for 2012 and going forward. Essentially, it is the Under-23 World Cup. That's what it is.
But Chicharito barked at 2012, so maybe.
Well, Ferguson apparently Ferguson made a deal with him where he wanted him to rest. So it's iffy. To this day, we don't really know what happened there. I mean, some people say Chicharito turned it down. Other people said that Ferguson didn't let him go, or kind of bargained for him to stay. At the end of the day, I don't think we can complain because everything worked out for us. As far as the reinforcements, I'm thinking it's going to be Antonio Rodriguez, despite the fact that both Lahoud, you have Jesse Gonzalez, you have obviously Gudiño, but I think it's going to be Antonio Rodriguez or Talavera, one or the other. Miguel Ayun and Chicharito are going to be the three overage players, in my opinion.
I'm hoping for a Mexico Brazil rematch again, huh?
That'd
That
be
would be sweet.
amazing.
In
Yes.
Brazil?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. You win the gold at Wembley, and then it'd be pretty cool if you win the gold at Maracanã.
Oh, that would be amazing for sure.
7-1.
Those guys better make it alive, dude.
Exactly what I was thinking, but man.
Hey, you see Chaco Jimenez's son like ripping it up in Cruz Azul or some lower level divisions.
Yeah. Well, no, he got injured recently. Chaco Jimenez, I think he broke his clavicle.
No, his son.
Yeah,
He's
no.
got like oh, yeah.
Yeah, his son. He plays in the Cruz Azul's youth.
Okay.
Yeah, he messed up his clavicle a couple weeks back.
All right, man. We hit the hour mark. You guys have any last controversial comments?
Well,
So
I wanted to throw out my 3 players that I wanted for the Olympic is El Gallito Vasquez. I think he would be a great addition, and why Peralta? You know, he came through last time, Saint the Savior again. And the last one, I'll probably get a defender, but I don't know who'd be on that role. I don't like if it's FIFA calendar, I would send in another gold medalist champion and send in Diego Reyes in there.
Yeah, maybe a good captain.
Yeah. So, question for you guys: does Osorio make it all the way to Russia?
I say yes.
Wait, as in general, or?
Yeah, I'm sure he'll go either way. I'm sure he'll pay for his own ticket if he has to, but I do think he makes it with the national team.
Chiquis?
I think he might. He probably could. If it's all up to the players. If they don't end up losing to like Panama and or somewhere in Mexico, if they lose to one of those teams in Mexico, and they start getting close to barely getting by, then some issues might happen.
I think it's up in the air, man. It's a 50-50 to me.
Febs?
It's too early to tell. I personally don't think he'll make it, but it's too early to tell.
Alrighty, good hour-long discussion. Thanks everyone for coming on. Good talk. We'll see what goes on this weekend on LigaMX.
Hey, Christian, was that a red T-shirt the whole time over the camera?
No, it's just my lighter.
Your lighter? Oh.
Yeah.
You can disable the thing too.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I'm using some weird app on my tablet and I couldn't figure it out. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But as a parting thought, I just want to say that el fútbol es nuestro y como siempre viva México, cabrones. Vámonos.
Yeah.
All right, and for the 2 viewers that are listening right now, and whoever listens on iTunes, you can follow at soccerchronicle.com.
Just wanted to show this picture real quick. Colima made this for everybody right here.
That looks like Osvaldo Sanchez, sort of.
That's actually Pablo Aguilar.
Yeah.
Well done.
You're wasting ink on that black and white printer, man.
It's okay, man. It's laser printer. It's all good.
Make that your avatar, dude, for the chat.
It already is, but I don't know why it wouldn't show. I don't know why.
It does show when you talk. It shows when you talk.
Oh, okay, good.
It shows your face.
Right, shows your picture.
I know. I logged out, and I'm like, I don't want to see this crap.
You know what? You remind me of Saddam Hussein with that mustache, dude.
Nice. He was a player.
Is Joel, is he just listening or is he participating?
He's at work listening.
He's just listening?
He's chatting a little bit, but yeah, he's just listening.
Yeah, okay, all right.
You can send him a parting thought too if you want.
Yeah, he's making mole with peanut butter.
Oh.
Or salsas.
All right, guys.
Shit. All right, guys.
I'm stopping the broadcast. See you guys next week.
See you next week.
See